I never thought I'd be sitting here at 63, wearing a wedding dress for the second time in my life. But here I am, and let me tell you, love after 60 feels nothing like I expected it would. 3 years ago, I was convinced my story was over. My husband of 38 years, Robert, had passed away after a long battle with cancer. I remember standing in our empty kitchen that first morning without him, holding his favorite coffee mug, wondering what on earth I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. The silence in that house was deafening. For months, I moved through each day like I was underwater. Everything felt muffled and distant. My daughter Sarah kept calling, worried sick about me. "Mom, you need to get out," she'd say. "Dad wouldn't want you to just disappear." But how do you explain to someone that you don't know who you are without the person you've been half of for nearly 4 decades? I'd lost my best friend, my travel companion, my morning coffee partner, and my biggest cheerleader all at once. The grief was like carrying a boulder in my chest. Some days it felt lighter, manageable. Other days it would knock the wind right out of me. I'd catch myself setting 2 plates at dinner or reaching for his hand while watching television. The hardest part wasn't the big moments. It was the tiny, everyday habits that reminded me he was gone. About 8 months after Robert passed, my neighbor Mrs. Chen practically dragged me to a community center pottery class. I protested the whole way there. "I'm not artistic," I told her. "My hands shake too much." But she wouldn't hear any of it. That first day, I sat at the pottery wheel feeling completely ridiculous. The clay kept collapsing, my hands were covered in mud, and I was pretty sure I was the oldest person in that room by at least a decade. But something magical happened when I focused on shaping that clay. For the first time in months, my mind went quiet. I wasn't thinking about empty beds or silent dinners. I was just present. The instructor, a gentleman named David with silver hair and paint-stained fingers, came over to help me. His hands guided mine on the wheel, and I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. A spark of joy. Week after week, I kept going back, not just for the pottery, though I was getting better at it, but for David's encouraging smile and the way he made everyone feel like their wobbly bowls were masterpieces. He had this wonderful laugh that filled up the whole room. I learned he was a retired art teacher, widowed for 5 years, with 3 grown children scattered across the country. We started talking after class, just small conversations at first. He'd compliment my latest creation, and I'd ask about his beautiful glazing techniques. Those conversations stretched longer each week. He told me about losing his wife to a sudden heart attack, how he'd thrown himself into teaching pottery to cope with the loneliness. I shared stories about Robert, about how we used to dance in the kitchen while dinner was cooking. One evening, David asked if I'd like to grab coffee after class. My heart started racing like I was 16 again. I almost said no. It felt like betraying Robert's memory somehow. But something in David's kind eyes made me say yes. We sat in that little cafe for 3 hours, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his grandchildren, his love for hiking, his dream of traveling to Italy. I found myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time since Robert died. The guilt hit me hard that night. How could I be enjoying another man's company? How could I be thinking about someone else when Robert's clothes were still hanging in our closet? I called Sarah, crying, convinced I was being disloyal to my husband's memory. She said something that changed everything. "Mom, Dad loved you for 38 years. Don't you think he'd want you to be loved for whatever years you have left?" David and I took things slowly. We were both carrying the beautiful weight of long marriages, both learning how to open our hearts again without feeling like we were erasing the past. Our first kiss happened 3 months later, standing in his pottery studio surrounded by half-finished bowls and the smell of clay. It was tender and careful, and nothing like the passionate kisses of my youth, but it was perfect in its own gentle way. We discovered that love after 60 isn't about replacing what you've lost. It's about adding something new and unexpected to the life you've already lived. David doesn't try to be Robert, and I don't try to be his first wife, Margaret. We honor our past loves while building something entirely our own. Our wedding last month was small. Just our children, a few close friends, and Mrs. Chen, who took full credit for our romance. As I walked down the aisle in my simple blue dress, I felt Robert's presence, not as a ghost haunting my happiness, but as a warm blessing on this new chapter. Love after 60 taught me that the heart doesn't have an expiration date. It taught me that it's possible to hold grief and joy in the same moment, that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives are the ones we never saw coming. If you're watching this and you've lost someone you love, please know that choosing to love again isn't a betrayal. It's a testament to how well you learned to love the first time. Your heart is bigger than you think, and there's room for both honoring your past and embracing your future.